Yeah, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it well. Hey, everybody, I think we're live. All right. Well, while we wait for the audience to build, thank you, Lulu and Sharon, for joining us today. As you know, this is a Progress Texas happy hour that we do on Fridays. Happy hour, kind of a relative term, depending on what your poison is. Mine's coffee.
Mine's coffee.
As far
Mine's
as anyone knows. Although with the state of the world right now and the way that news is flying past us, I wouldn't judge anybody if it was anything else. Lulu Seikaly, you are running for Congress in Texas Congressional District 3, and then Sharon Hirsch running for the state legislature in House District 66. Sharon, were you the closest race that didn't get past the finish line in 2018?
No, I think I was the third closest. There was a race that was under 100 votes, I think down in the Houston area. There was Joanna Katnak's race in the Dallas area that was about 220, I think. And then ours was 391 votes. Yeah,
that's still, I mean, what is that? 3 votes a precinct or something like that? I mean.
Yeah, there's 41 precincts, so about 10 votes precinct, yeah.
Oh. And Lulu, you're running in District 3, Congressional District 3, which, to be honest, wasn't really a race that was on our radar until you became the nominee. And I think the first time we had a chance to talk was when you called me up for a donation in June. And good on you for doing that. Progress Texas obviously is a C4 group, can't give, but I personally can, and was happy to do that. But you've really not only made a name for yourself, but really have put this district on the map.
We are very excited, and Sharon's House District is actually fully in my congressional district, as well as House District 67. So I have a lot of thanks to give to Sarah Depew, who ran in 67, to Sharon, who ran in 66. This was a race that we knew was winnable based on how well the Democrats performed here last cycle, but we didn't know what was here until we just came out with a poll shows the race is virtually tied. Joe Biden is up by 3. And there have just been so many untouched communities here that have never been asked to engage in the political process before. And that's how we're getting our name out, getting people engaged that have never been engaged before. So we're really excited to actually have a representative who's going to represent the interests of the people who live here.
That's fantastic. And just as a note for everybody, it's Lulu Seikaly, which we were talking about off camera before we came on live here. Tell us a little bit about your formerly famous or maybe currently famous cousin.
So my dad is cousins with Ronnie Seikaly's dad, who was a famous basketball player back in the early to mid 90s. He made a name for himself when he played for Syracuse in college ball. He's now a DJ in Miami. So whenever people get my name right, I know that they know who Ronnie Seikaly is because way back when. But if y'all met me in real life, you'd never believe I was related to him because I'm barely 5'2". So.
All right. And what is the heritage, that name, Seikaly?
So my parents are both immigrants from Lebanon. They both fled civil war in 1984, came to the U.S. to make a better life for themselves, and actually achieved the American dream, and they did. My dad's a physician here. My mom is a nurse here, or was a nurse, I guess, here in the DFW area. So we are Lebanese Americans. So very proud of that.
That's great. It's really good to hear, and such a Texan story. Like, it's a very American story. Like my parents, my dad immigrated here from Peru, and my family settled in Southern California. I found my way to Texas as fast as I could, and then of course your story as well. And then Sharon, how long have you been in the North Texas area, and what compelled you to do this crazy thing and run for office?
Yeah, well, we moved down here in 1996, 24 years ago. My husband was and he started off as a teacher and became got the bug for technology, got into technology, developed educational technology program for a school district up in just north of the Twin Cities, and worked with Dr. Doug Otto, who was recruited down to Plano to be the superintendent of Plano ISD. So that's the backstory. Dr. Otto invited us to come down and be part of the Plano ISD family 24 years ago. So we uprooted our four children who were going into, I think, 1st, 3rd, 7th, and 10th grades at the time.
Wow.
Sold our snowblower and our roof rake and decided to, try something new. It was really a huge decision. But we came down and visited, and we really liked the Plano area. It was still growing like crazy, and they were committed to doing some really cool things with the school district. The community's lovely, parks and libraries and all the things that you want when you're raising a young family, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we got here. Later, I went to work for the school district. Our daughter graduated college and came back and taught with Plano ISD. And in the course of that time, I became very frustrated about the lack of support for public education coming from our own representatives. And that really started kind of when that Tea Party wave came in, and there was more of a push to privatization and vouchers. I was really frustrated that people weren't more upset about it. But things, when things are rolling around, going really well for a long time, sometimes you don't know when those changes start to happen. But we were living it real time because we were, working in school. And my daughter-in-law is also a teacher in the school district. So, we were there when the 2011 cuts, the $5.4 billion cuts came. Yeah, it was devastating to schools across the state. And weave in there my work with the Collin County Democratic Party and Texas Democratic Women and Women Organizing Women Democrats. It all came together, and I said, darn it, I'm going to run against this guy. So good. That's what got me to this point.
Well, schools are obviously a really big issue in Texas right now. And I think that those cuts you mentioned in 2011 were kind of the beginning of a lot of the issues that people have had with public schools here. We're going to come back to that in a second. Real quick, Sharon, you said when you moved down here and you gave up your snowblower, where was that you moved here from?
We were just north of Minneapolis.
All right. So from the Plains to Plano, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
When I came here from Washington, D.C., California to D.C. to Texas, I had to get an entirely new wardrobe. I'm sure you did too, because the Texas weather, we have 2 seasons here. It's hot and just not so hot, right? Okay, well, I want to move into coronavirus because that is the big thing. And the first thing I want to ask you both is, Lulu, what's keeping you grounded during all of this? And then Sharon, if you could follow up as well, like what is it that's really helped guide you through these past 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the support I've been very fortunate to have a strong support system surrounding me throughout the entire campaign, COVID or not COVID. But I'm very thankful, my family's just down the street. My in-laws are just down the street. My friends are here. My husband's here. So that's the little interaction I get in person. I come from a field background originally. So I would love to be out in the field talking to people. The Collin County Democratic Party did a vigil for Justice Ginsburg a few weeks ago. Maybe it was just a week ago. I have no concept of time right now. But it was so good to see Sharon in person. It was so good to see so many others in person who have been so supportive of our race. But we know that this is bigger. We know that we have to get through this. We have to elect, different people to Washington, to Austin, to make sure something this detrimental doesn't happen again.
Definitely. And Sharon, how about you? How are you keeping grounded through this pandemic?
Yeah, well, every single day, I remind myself of all the things I'm grateful for. I've been very fortunate. My family stayed healthy. I have older sisters, and a sister and brother that are just a little bit younger than I. We're all kind of in that age, right? So we look after each other and make sure that we're all well and healthy. Our kids all live in the area, my grandkids as well, so we can keep track and keep in touch with each other. And like Lulu, not being out in the field has been horrible. Now I get out and I try to go for a walk every single day. So I get outside and get some fresh air, but And like Lulu, we had primaries. So we did have an opportunity to get out and knock on doors and visit with people and go to all sorts of events. But the lack of that personal conversation has been really tough. So I also enjoyed the opportunity to get together for the vigil and see people. It was something to look forward to, even though it was a really sad event, but that we were able to share our thoughts and memories together was really nice.
Yeah. And seeing that both of you are running for very different offices, in that one is federal and one is state, but you're still a representative of the people. And the fact that Sharon's district is fully nested within Lulu's, the district that Lulu's running in, that I think shows that even though they're different districts and different issues, I'm sure that the things that people talk about, care about, are very similar. And I'm curious, even though this is a different kind of campaign and you can't knock on the doors, which is a challenge, I know that you both have very strong ties to your community. What is it that people what's on their minds right now? Like, what is the one or two biggest issues that people tell you about?
I think here, regardless of whether it was COVID or not, the number one issue we've been hearing about is about healthcare, how we can make healthcare more affordable, more accessible to everyone, and make sure that we maintain the highest quality healthcare. Dan Taylor, the incumbent I'm running against, has been actively working with Donald Trump to strip away the Affordable Care Act that provided so many protections to us, such as protecting pre-existing conditions, such as allowing young people up to the age of 26 to stay on their parents' health insurance. That is something that we've been hearing about over and over again, and it shocks people when I tell them that our current representative here in Texas 3 is actively working to dismantle it. The second thing with COVID is that people want to know how we're going to get the economy back on track. How are we going to make sure that small businesses survive, that people are able to find jobs again, that we can stimulate the economy? Collin County, for the most part, is a pretty comfortable area, but we have a lot of small businesses here that have been really hurt and affected by the COVID-19 response. And it's terrible because it could have been managed in a much better way, a much different way on the federal level, on the state level. And so we hear that frustration from people. And I think that that's why people are going to go out in troves to make sure they're going to vote this in November in hell or high water, in a hazmat suit, whatever the situation is. People are really motivated to go out to vote in November.
Yeah. Yep. And Sharon, the big issues?
Yeah, I agree. I think the big issues are always going to be education, healthcare, and the economy. And now you put COVID, that umbrella over that, and how it has impacted those three areas and what we can do about it. And like Lulu said, my opponent too has been adamantly against Medicaid expansion, has been adamantly against the Affordable Care Act, things that actually could help us on the healthcare front. These guys are fighting tooth and nail. Same with education, still supporting vouchers, expansion of charters. When I talk to people, those are their biggest concerns. And also, I have to say the state of politics, the vitriol, the rhetoric around politics, people are really bothered by that. We have people here from everywhere, all around the world. And when you hear that kind of threatening language, I think there are all sorts of people that just are afraid. They don't feel as welcome. And I think that's really sad. But I've had a lot of conversations with folks that work in the school district, getting those schools open, critical to the economy. It's all woven together, but still, how are you going to keep school open when teachers are getting sick? I have an acquaintance right now that is a teacher that has COVID, another one who's a teacher that's undergoing cancer treatment, another teacher who's had a kidney transplant. All of these things complicate the situation, and it's not easy. But we haven't seen great leadership from the top, whether you're talking about Texas or the federal government. People needed to act, give us trustworthy information, give us a confidence, act, boldly and responsibly, take responsibility for their actions. That's what leaders in a crisis situation do, and we have not seen that.
And one thing, again, whether it's a state issue or running for office at the federal level, that coming back to the schools for a second, there really is no good answer, right? Do you reopen the schools? Do you keep the schools closed? You could really make a debate on both sides, but the most important thing is there a policy to make sure that whatever we do is done safely? And it really seems like our state leaders have failed us here. Our federal leaders have failed us here. And I'm curious, Lulu, is that permeating into the federal race as well?
It is. I think just safety in general. I'm endorsed by AFT, the teachers union. We had a really great conversation with 2 local teachers here in Plano ISD about what it's like to go back to school in a safe manner, what it's been like doing virtual learning. And, the concerns are the same, which is that Texas never closed and we never had a plan. And I think that's what the scariest part is. And even on the federal level, the debate the other night, Donald Trump said that we shut down the country. I was not around for that. I don't know what he's talking about, but I don't remember a countrywide shutdown that he alluded to. But, I think that I think that's the frustration, is that we had put our faith in these leaders in Austin and DC to protect us, to make sure that our well-beings were okay, to make sure that we stayed healthy. And they failed us time and time again in just this year of 2020, when it all could have been so avoided with just, a little bit shut down at a time to make sure we got the virus under control. I think that's been the biggest frustration I'm hearing on the ground.
I remember early in the pandemic, I tried to take off to New Mexico to do a little bit of camping. And what I realized when I got there is that we here in Texas had a real false sense of security because we hadn't really closed down. And then I get to a state like New Mexico, which was virtually shuttered. Mm-hmm. And it was real stark contrast. All right. The thing about this campaign in 2020 is that there's a lot of bad news out there. And some of the things I'm going to ask you continue along that line. But I do want to finish on a positive note. So if there's some positive things we can get to towards the end, I will definitely make room for that if you can keep that in mind. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about some of the more troubled waters that are upon us right now. And it's that yesterday, Governor Greg Abbott limited ballot returns to 1 location per county. There was a news alert that came out last night that said he is considering revoking the extra week of early vote from 3 weeks down to 2 weeks. Layer that on top of all of the other issues in the state. No online voter registration, voter ID that accepts a gun ID but not a student ID, no vote by mail unless you're over age 65 or have reach some other stringent requirements. Have you ever seen any politicians more afraid of the ballot box than these Republicans right now?
Yeah, it's truly unconscionable what we're seeing right now. I'm just in the middle of a book called One Person, No Vote, I think it's called. And it's about, voter suppression since day one, right? So this is not new. But we have plenty of examples all across the country from states who have instituted good voting policies that work. So we can just go to school on them, right? The saddest thing for me, I've been on the phones, every single day for one reason or the other, but we did some vote by mail chase calls. I don't even remember what day it was, yesterday or the day before. And the uncertainty that all of this has planted in people's heads, Yeah. When you have folks that, senior citizens that really enjoy this ability to vote by mail now are doubting whether they should do it. What do you think? Should I go in person? People that don't understand you have to surrender that ballot. It's unconscionable what they're doing to diminish just the people's confidence in the election. And I think
do you have any positive reinforcement to offer those folks or suggestions?
Yeah, I think there's just, I have 3 things that I tell them to do. Either mark the ballot and put it in the mail right away. Mm-hmm. Don't open the ballot and take it to the polling place and surrender it, or drive it to the McKinney office. Mm. And I think I looked up, Collin County's about just under 900 square miles. When I was thinking of the Harris County situation where they're, the size of Delaware, and they're going to have one drop box or one place to take the ballot. But, and just try and encourage them to do it right away. take care of it right away so you don't have any problems. I'm worried about a lot of provisional ballots being cast, which is not going to be a good thing. So we're going to keep calling people, keep giving them the correct information, and hopefully instilling some confidence in them.
Lulu?
I mean, this is just another example of our leaders playing politics. They don't care about access to voting. They don't care about our ability to have a voice for our communities. And the only way that they win is to suppress our votes. What a cheap shot. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. We've been talking about the voter suppression here for a long time. I had a runoff I had to deal with back in mid-July. And the Texas Democratic Party filed a lawsuit to see if we could have universal mail-in ballot for that July election, because that was the height of COVID, right? And we didn't want people having to choose between their healthcare and their right to vote, to have to make that decision. But I think people here are so motivated to go out and vote. We saw huge turnout numbers for the runoff election, which for a runoff was great. For a runoff during COVID, even more remarkable. Something that our poll showed that we just got back a couple weeks ago was that 98% of Democrats we polled on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not motivated, 10 being the most motivated, said they were 10 out of 10 motivated to go out to vote. 98%. That's something my team has never seen that high of a number. So when Sharon says, if you got a mail-in ballot, you want to go vote in person, make sure you take it with you to the polling location. So that way you can switch out your mail-in ballot for a real ballot at the polling location, or else you're gonna get a provisional ballot. So just make sure that you understand everything. Please feel free to reach out to our campaign, to Sharon's campaign. We have a lot of information if you guys are unsure about the best way to vote this cycle, because we want to make sure your voices are heard.
Excellent. I love the positive ending on these notes, is that we can talk a little bit about the problems, but talk about what we can do to empower people. I want to talk now a little bit about the demographics of North Texas, because for years people have looked at not just Texas, but North Texas as not as a dark red state. And what we like to say is Texas is not a red state, it's a non-voting state. But Collin County in particular is one of my favorite examples to cite, because the growth in that county has been just exponential. And the growth has, as far as the voter growth, has been almost entirely in one direction, and that is Democratic and progressive. And I want to talk a little bit about the community out there and what it looks like. And it might look a lot different than what people perceive it to look like. Now, Lulu, for instance, you would be the first Arab American congresswoman from Texas. What does it mean to you to be able to potentially have that claim? But how is that a reflection of the community around you and how it's changed and the diversity of North Texas?
Well, I am very honored when elected that I get to make this pathway for young women. During the primary election, when we were able to be out more in person, even when we were poll greeting, I had young girls, I'm not even kidding you, 18, saying, I came to vote for you because you look like me. This is the first time anyone has ever looked like me that's running for office here in my community. Collin County as a whole, I know a lot of people think that it's very Caucasian. It still is majority, but over the past 5 years, it's gotten 10% less Caucasian over the past 5 years. We have a very large South Asian community, a very large Asian American community, and an even bigger immigrant and first generation community. So like my parents, like me. And so I've been very fortunate to connect with these communities on so many different levels, because they know I understand what it's like to grow up in an immigrant household, to have parents who had to flee their home country and do such a brave thing to come to a brand new country. And me growing up here as that first generation who was born in the US, that's really been resonating with a lot of people. So although ethnically different, although culturally different from my Lebanese heritage, that's how we've been connecting with a lot of these different diverse communities here. And it's been so exciting to see how many people have been reaching out to us to say, we heard about your race. Did you know there's a Kurdish community here? Did you know that there's a Nepalese community here? Did you know there's a Moroccan community here? And so I am very thankful that I can be that type of person who can bring all of these different communities and cultures together. So that way we can actually have a representative who's going to represent all the communities here.
That's fantastic. And Sharon, similarly, since you've moved to Texas decades ago now, I'm sure that North Texas looks a lot different from your point of view as well.
Oh yeah, just north of where I am here. Those weren't even paved roads, I think, when we moved here. So it's kind of gone from this sleepy suburban town to this, hip urban cosmopolitan kind of place. And I actually live at the shops at Legacy in an apartment complex. Now we've gone from the 2-story house to the other, smaller house to the apartment with 4
Sure.
kids. Going away, but I can see Toyota North America headquarters out my window, and all of these Liberty Mutual and the huge Capital One complex, and all of these places have brought these beautiful, diverse communities here, young families, families that care about education. I served 2 terms on City of Plano's Cultural Affairs Commission, and I had the opportunity to get to know the folks that put on our Plano International Festival and Asia Fest, and have attended them for many years. And they just keep growing and becoming more outstanding and important pieces of what makes Plano a really great place to be. So as Lulu said too, these communities are engaged at a level I've never seen before. And the coolest thing is that they're like, we can do this for you. We can be the ones that put you over the top. And they see the power of their engagement and the power of their vote. And it is it is one of the most exciting things to watch.
Well, let's talk more about that here in the final minutes that we've got. Lulu, you said that 98% of a portion or all of the people you talk to were a 10 out of 10 with their enthusiasm to vote. Sharon, you're mentioning that people are so excited to get out. What other positive notes can you offer from your campaigns that you're seeing out there, or any other messages that you want to share? And feel free to offer your websites as well.
I mean, with our race, we want to be the race of inclusivity. We know that our representatives here for a long period of time in Texas 3 have only really cared about small groups of people in our community and their corporate PAC interests. We really need someone who's going to be a speaker for the community. And something I've been telling people on the campaign trail is, look, you may not always 100% agree with where I stand on views, but you'll always know where I stand. And that's something we haven't had in Collin County for decades. I think that's really important to make sure we have a representative who is going to be a voice for the people, who is going to take the concerns to Washington, and is going to talk to everybody, not just those who voted for them or donated to their campaign. That's the big difference. We are in the final stretch. Early voting hopefully starts in about 11 days, October 13th. We want you guys to make sure you're registered to vote. Please go to registertexas.com, check your voter registration. If you're not registered, you have until October 5th, which is Monday, I believe, to register to vote for the November election. We would love to have any help we can get. We have volunteers on phone bankings. I think we're going to start lip dropping and doing text message outreach. We'd love to have any help you guys are able to give us. LuluForTexas.com is our website. There's a volunteer button. You can click there and send a message to us, and we will get you guys hooked up to volunteer. So I'm very excited to turn Collin County blue, the color of my jacket. Purposely wore it for today because I think that we have an opportunity here. And honestly, the way I've been feeling the past few weeks, it's ours to lose. And so we have to make sure we're not taking our foot off the gas. We're helping all candidates, from Joe Biden to the judicial candidates, making sure that we get representation that cares, and that's going to be effective, and it's going to push our country forward, not take it backwards. So that's what I have to say.
Great.
Yeah, the level of engagement is just incredibly high. We had a joint phone bank with Beto last night. 290,000 calls went out, 350 volunteers. I've never seen anything like this before. Groups calling me constantly. Can you get on a Zoom with us so we can visit? What can we do for you? We'll, postcards, phone calls, lit drops. People are ready they're fired up. They're really ready to make some change. That's the responses I got on the phone bank last night. We've got to make change. Another lady, I'll crawl on hands and knees to vote. I mean, people are highly motivated. They understand the impact of their vote. We'd love to have you on our team as well. Sharon for Texas, right? It's the number 4, Sharon, the number 4, Texas.com. You can sign up to volunteer for us as well. We'll need you for phone banks and texting. lit dropping all the way to election day. And as Lulu said, please vote from the top of the ballot all the way to the bottom. We don't have straight ticket voting anymore. It's another thing that was taken away. So we're not going to let anybody stop us. We're going to finish what we started. We're going to build on all that progress we've made over the years, and we're going to finish with a big exclamation point on November 3rd. And I appreciate everybody's help, everybody's support. It's been fantastic.
Well, and we appreciate both of you running. You know, I don't know if you get this often enough, but thank you for putting yourselves out there. Sharon, for you doing it 2 times in a row. Lulu, for being able to go through a primary and a runoff to get to the general. It's been a year like no other. And we're so fortunate to have good candidates like yourselves who are qualified and persistent. And I'm really looking forward to what this campaign, with the last few days of this campaign. And yeah, I thank you again for running, and thank you again for joining us here at Progress Texas. This is running live now on a number of different channels, and we'll have the recordings up soon, and people will be able to keep viewing them then. So if there's any other parting words, I'll give you a moment to say them, and if not, then we can be on our way.
I just wanted to thank Ed and Progress Texas for all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you for inviting us to give us this platform to share our stories. And we all got to work together. Sharon and our names are on the ballot, but we can't do it without the people supporting us behind the scenes. So thank you guys.
Yeah, ditto. I agree with everything Lulu said. Thanks for everything.
All right. Thank you all. And thanks everybody for watching. And a few more weeks. We're almost there. Thanks, everybody.
Let's do it.